USS Sigsbee, a Fletcher-class destroyer, was a ship of the United States Navy named for Rear Admiral Charles D. Sigsbee. Sigsbee was laid down on the 22nd of July 1942 by Federal Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Co. Carney, N.J., launched on the 7th of December 1942, sponsored by Mrs. A.O. Fisher and commissioned on the 23rd of January 1943. Commander Benjamin V. Russell in command. 1943. Sigsbee completed outfitting 3 weeks later and sailed to Casco Bay, Maine, for 10 days of gunnery and torpedo practice before sailing to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, to complete her shakedown. She returned to the Brooklyn Navy Yard, New York, for post-shakedown overhaul. Upon completion, the destroyer escorted Birmingham to Norfolk. On the 4th of April, she escorted 2 tankers to Casco Bay and returned. Next was an escort trip with Independence and Guest to Trinidad, BWI, where the aircraft carrier trained her air group. Upon her return to Norfolk, Sigsbee refueled and with Guest and Earl escorted Lexington to Trinidad, arriving on the 16th of May. On the 8th of June, the destroyer was detached from the group and proceeded independently to New York. Sigsbee operated between New York, Casco Bay, and Norfolk until the 22nd of July. On that date, the destroyer, with Harrison, Daly, and Lexington, stood out of Norfolk en route to Pearl Harbor via the Panama Canal. The canal was transited on the 27th of July, and Sigsbee arrived at Pearl Harbor on the 9th of August. In mid-August, Sigsbee joined the task group built around carriers Yorktown, Essex, and Independence, commanded by Rear Admiral Charles Allen Parnell, for raids against Marcus Island, in which considerable damage was done to enemy installations. Sigsbee returned to Pearl Harbor on the 8th of September 1943. Sigsbee was off Wake Island 3 weeks later and participated in the bombardment of that island on the 5th of October. On the 21st of October, the destroyer stood out of Pearl Harbor en route to Ufate, New Hebrides. She arrived on the 5th of November and spent the next 2 weeks in training with transports. On the 13th of November, Sigsbee sortied with Task Unit 53.1.4 for the Gilbert Islands. On 22 and the 23rd of November, she bombarded Besho at Tarawa Atoll. She then returned to Pearl Harbor on the 14th of December for a yard availability period. 1944. On the 22nd of January 1944, Sigsbee sailed out of Pearl Harbor with Task Force 52 to participate in the assault and capture of Kwajalein, Marshall Islands. The destroyer bombarded Enilebigan Island on the morning of the 31st of January, and that evening, Sigsbee and Ringgold entered the lagoon to protect American shipping and provide call fire for troops ashore. The destroyer remained in the Marshall Islands until the 1st of March, when she departed for Ufate. Sigsbee sortied from there on the 20th of March, with TF-37 to participate in the bombardment of Kavieng, New Ireland. In April, Sigsbee patrolled the entrance to Humboldt Bay until the 26th, when she screamed a convoy to Cape Cretin. After patrolling in the Guadalcanal area for several weeks, Sigsbee joined 253.1.14 to take part in the Marianas Campaign. The destroyer bombarded the Guam beaches during the period 16 to the 18th of July, as well as covering the underwater demolition teams on the beaches. She then joined the picket screen and remained off Guam until the 3rd of August. Sigsbee returned to Humboldt Bay for a month and then joined TF-77, proceeded to Morotai Island, North Moluccas, and provided fire support for the landings on Cape Podangi in mid-September. Sigsbee returned to Humboldt Bay and was assigned to TF-78. The force sortied on the 3rd of October for the assault and landings on Leyte PI on the 20th. After the invasion of Leyte, the destroyer sailed for San Francisco and an overhaul, arriving there on the 15th of November 1944. Sigsbee was back in Pearl Harbor on the 19th of January 1945 and then sailed for Ulithi, where she joined TF-58, the Fast Carrier Task Force. 1945. On the 16th of February, the task force launched airstrikes against Japan and Okinawa in support of the landings on Iwo Jima. On the 14th of March, the fast carriers and Sigsbee again steamed out of Ulithi for airstrikes against the Japanese home islands to neutralize the airfields in preparation for the forthcoming assault on Okinawa. The destroyer then joined the radar picket ships off that island and remained there until the 14th of April. On that date, the destroyer was struck aft of her No. 5 gun by a kamikaze suicide plane. The port engine was knocked out of commission. The starboard engine could only be run at 5 knots. Steering control was lost, and the ship began to take on water. CMDR. Gordon Paya Chung-hoon, in command of Sigsbee, continued to fight his ship and direct anti-aircraft fire, while at the same time directing damage control parties that saved his ship. 23 sailors were killed in the attack. Sigsbee was towed south to Guam, where she was sufficiently repaired for the long tow back to Pearl Harbor. The destroyer arrived there on the 7th of June 1945 and had a complete new 60-foot stern installed, ready for sea again. The ship sailed out of port on the 28th of September en route to the east coast of the United States. On the 22nd of October, she arrived at Philadelphia. The following week, the ship moved to Charleston to prepare for inactivation. On the 1st of May 1946, the destroyer was placed in commission, in reserve. On the 31st of March 1947, Sigsbee was placed in reserve, out of commission, with the Atlantic Reserve Fleet. On the 1st of December 1974, she was stricken from the Naval Vessel Register, and on the 31st of July 1975 the ship was sold and broken up for scrap. Awards. Sigsbee was awarded 11 battle stars for World War II service.